has to plug them in and leave them plugged in for 24 hours. That was called the soak test. Now, sometimes they blew up, or the fuse went, or they caught fire, and some of them came through okay, and then I stamped them up, and they went into the packing department. They were put into a cabinet, and then packed and sent out. They could never understand why it was called a wireless, because when you looked in the back of it, there was millions of wires all over. I said, how can you call that a wireless? And there's all these wires in there. And you say, well, it's the fact there's no wire between the chap you hear talking and this set, you know, it's completely, it comes over the air.
I get blue when I hear the wheeze of the choo-choo. Wow. I want you to go too with me on the choo-choo. Wow. The day's here, so get near, see what I have to say. Wow. Get your stuff and pack up, cause we're going away. Wow. The sun shines, my heart finds for those lasses and Kay.
Most streets now had electricity, and the products of the assembly line began to fill British homes. Though new appliances didn't reach the depressed areas, car companies like to claim the engine of mass production was now pulling the whole economy forward.
And because we make a motor for a Surrey man to drive, there are cotton hands in Rochdale who will keep their hopes alive. And because we make a tractor for a farmer down in Kent, there are jobs up there in Durham, and there's money to be spent. There are women buying dresses, there are children being fed, there are mothers who can manage, there are lovers who can wed, there are hopes to be replenished, there are dreams to be restored, there are lives to reach fulfillment through the making of your Ford.
But while its supporters claimed so much for it, the Ford system had also become a powerful symbol for much that seemed wrong with 20th century life. In his novel, Brave New World, published in 1932, Aldous Huxley portrayed a brutal, standardized, emotionless society dominated by mass production, in which Henry Ford was God. The same year, French cinemas were showing Give Us Our Freedom, set in a gramophone factory. It satirized the effect of the line. Tyrannical managers watched over timid workers in prison uniforms. In the American film Modern Times, originally called The Masses, Charlie Chaplin got enmeshed in the machinery of the giant factory where he worked. As efficiency experts increased the speed, he went berserk, seized by the jerking motions of his job. The whole system of mass production came under increasing attack from the left. When the Marxist artist Diego Rivera painted a mural of the River Rouge plant for a new Detroit art gallery, he showed sullen, angry workers in the clamor and din of huge machines. Paul Botin was one of the faces in the picture.
He managed to capture some of my physical characteristics. My family says my nose has never been that long, but I don't know. Maybe it is. The machines are perfect designs, perfect designs. And in the faces of the workers, he wanted his models to recognize themselves, to see some part of themselves. The strength that was shown on the faces of the workers seemed intimidating to some people, because if they came off the wall with their strong muscles and their muscular brows, they may prove dangerous.
Some Detroit industrialists saw the mural as left-wing propaganda and wanted it whitewashed over. And in every country that now made cars on the assembly line, workers began to give voice to their anger.
You had become an animal, worse than a plain chunk of meat. you felt a complete frustration and isolation.
On a tant de pièces à faire dans une heure.
We had a certain number of parts to assemble each hour. You had to do it. No sooner did you finish one part than another one arrived. No stopping allowed.
Il ne faut pas s'arrêter. Donc,
The worker was just like a machine. With the machine, you push a button and it works non-stop. The worker just had to keep up.
il faut qu'il suive la machine.
The whole place was laid out to get the greatest number of cars out in the shortest possible time, irrespective of what that meant as far as the worker was concerned. The worker was really part of the machinery, was in fact a robot.
Eddie Froh worked at Ford in Britain. In the 1930s, the level of frustration grew. British car workers also had no unions and could be laid off if sales fell or new plant was being installed. Agitation often came from those who'd known unions in other industries, like the young man who'd come by motorbike from the South Wales coalfield, Hayden Evans.
All these unskilled jobs in the press steel were all treated equal, and they had the same conditions, the same troubles, the same grievances. So you had a united people with no representation, nobody to answer for them. Right, we'll have a union.
After a strike, pressed steel finally recognized the union and agreed higher wages. It was a breakthrough for British car workers. At the Renault factory, the spark that ignited their revolt came when the management decided to speed up production.
À une époque, on en faisait 100 pièces dans l'heure.
One time we were assembling 100 parts an hour. Then the management decided to up the pace, and we had to do 110, then 120.
120. Alors c'est ce qui a fait que
Inevitably, things snapped. We'd had enough. We weren't machines.
On n'est pas des machines.
At a time of political turmoil in France, the workers evicted the managers, occupied the plant, and declared a takeover. Food was sent to them as they camped in the offices. All over France, other workers did the same as those at Renault.
Les hommes, ils occupaient.
The men occupied the factories and the women went there every day. Not at night, though.
Puis on s'était organisé, on jouait au
We were
cartes.
pretty organised. We played cards, we danced, we managed to have some fun. It wasn't all bad.
C'était pas toujours triste.
The Renault workers had discovered their collective power. It seemed a glorious interlude of defiance against the line. After several weeks, the management capitulated.
We were slapping each other on the back saying, "That's it, we've done it."
On a gagné. Voilà.
French workers won higher wages, a 40-hour week, and an annual holiday for the first time.
C'est pas croyable, mais vous savez que j'étais, on était.
It's hard to believe, but out of 120 of us, there was only one who'd ever been on holiday. We packed our bags and went off to look at the sea. I was from Brittany and lived 30 kilometres from the sea, but I'd never seen it. It was quite a sight, seeing grown people playing like children.
Et puis les gosses et tout ça.
Though many of their gains proved temporary, French workers had shown how it was possible to stop the assembly lines. Under the fascist regimes of Germany and Italy, any challenge was impossible. In Italy, Fiat was able to cut wages and increase hours in the 1930s because unions were illegal. For Felice Gentile, life was increasingly regimented.
Sul lavoro non si lavorava, non si lavorava, non si fumava.
On the job we'd work, how we'd work. You couldn't go for a smoke.
Si controllava,